Green tea is here. Better than having green algae, right? This is the last topic in the Green Aqua tutorial series, and it's about substrates, soils, sand. Whole S. Anyway, welcome to the beautiful world of aquascaping. Substrate system. How thick would you want to lay that? How do you place the soil at the bottom of the tank? How much should I buy from these? Let's just get some definitions out of our way, because all the manufacturers and all of us actually at Green Aqua are calling these things that you lay at the bottom of the aquarium by different names. Some call them substrate, some call them soil, others call them even sand, and it's not a sand. The base layer fertilizing substrate, an underlying substance or layer, that's the definition of substrate, is something that's at the bottom of the tank, and anything else that is on top will be called soil. Let's jump into it. Basically, you can have three things at the bottom of your tank. You can have a base layer fertilizing substrate, which is something that gives a lot of nutrition to the plant roots. You will have a general plant substrate called soil on top, which is also good for the roots, good for the biology. And then you have the inert substrate, which is the third category, which would be sand, pebbles, and everything else. These are the three main categories of all substrates. ADA calls this whole thing a substrate system. First, it will help you with the filtration. The second role of the substrate would be providing nutrients to the plant roots. And the third role would be the chemistry, helping with the water parameters by lowering the pH and lowering GH, the general hardness of the water. So let's talk about the two main categories, the active soils and the inert substrates first. If you take one thing from this video, and this is the most important thing that I'm telling to all beginners, you would contribute to the biology of your tank, to your plant health immensely if you use an active soil. Why would you need a good quality soil? Because a good quality soil will promote the water movement inside the soil. So there's going to be a lot of oxygen taken by the water to the plant roots, so the plant roots will be able to breathe. For healthy plants, you would need an oxygen-rich soil. Also, about the biology, as I explained in the filtration video, there's billions of bacteria living inside the soil, and that will help your filtration. If you do have only, say, sand at the bottom, you will have a problem, because the sand will compact. Water will not get into that sand quite easily. So you will have a so-called anaerobic process in the soil, which means that you will have the different type of bacteria converting nitrates into ammonia. And you don't want that direction, you want ammonia into nitrates direction. How do you place the soil at the bottom of the tank? As I said, you've got the base layer fertilizing substrate, so-called substrate at the beginning of this video. That is something that is full with nutrients. You've got a number of base layer fertilizing substrates laid down here in front of me. And let's talk about power sand a little bit. Power sand is very special because it has actually ADA BioRio in it. They host billions of bacteria, they have a big surface. The advanced soils from ADA contain bacteria. That is very important as well. This is the Tropica substrate. The grain size of the Tropica substrate resembles the clay-based substrate grain size a bit, but it also has this dusty element into it. The Danale looks more like a sand, and it's actually sand-based. You don't want to rinse these soils because you would wash out all the organic material that comes in them, and that's a precious material for you, so you would have to just lay that at the bottom of your planted tank. How thick would you want to lay that? For 1 centimeter at the bottom of your planted tank. You can have that higher if you wish. We've done planted tanks where we had about 30-40 centimeters of base layer fertilizing substrate, which is obviously a lot of money to spend on a planted tank. And if you don't want to do that, you can actually fill the gaps in with two things. You can fill it in with the lava stone or the pumice. And many people are asking me, okay, but would you like to place the base layer fertilizing substrate below these or on top of the lava stones? And I would say if you want to raise it a lot, then I would suggest that you put some crushed lava stones at the bottom, put the base layer fertilizing substrate on top, and use the clay-based substrate on top of that. If the raise would be 10 centimeters or so, it doesn't really matter where you put it. Another thing that people ask me, do you need the substrate at all? Would you be just okay with the clay-based soil? I would say that yes, you would, but you're missing something. You're gonna miss the nutrition value of the base layer fertilizing substrate. You would have to use root taps anyway. The whole biology of the tank will be a lot more fragile. So you'd have to take care of many things that you don't have to take care when you're having a good quality substrate system in your planted tank. In the case of the base layer fertilizing substrate, you don't want to pour it in the front. You can just pull it a little bit away from the front glass so you don't have it visible. Ideally, you just want to have the general plant substrate visible at the foreground of your tank. With that, we're moving to the second topic, the soil, the clay-based general plant substrate, as we call it at Green Aqua. That needs to cover the base layer fertilizing substrate. That is very important because if it gets in contact with the water, you will have a lot of algae because a lot of organic material will be released into the water instantaneously. And by how much, how thick? At least 4 centimeters. So this is the thickness that you should always cover the base layer fertilizing substrate. Plant roots would feel good in clay-based substrate because the roots will penetrate the substrate more easily. They don't have to struggle. They can attach themselves to this porous surface, and they would also not waste all the energy of just going through the sand. As you can see on this picture, we raised the general plant substrate really high in this tank. It can even go all the way to the top of the tank towards the back. Why would you want to do that? Because you want to have a perspective in the tank. If you have worse quality soil, then you would not be able to build hills of it. You should really use a good quality clay-based substrate for that if you can afford it. There are two types of soils in the aquarium hobby. One is made for plants, the other is made for shrimp. The main difference between them is that the soils made for shrimp contain less nutrients. The ADA Aqua Soil Amazonia version 2, and you can see the root taps included in the version 2, it's in the bag, in a separate little bag, is a very heavy soil, meaning that it has a lot of nutrients in it. But it's not a soil for beginners because it leaches a lot of ammonia at the beginning, and you will have to do the water changes regularly at the beginning, and you might have ammonia spikes, so you have to be careful with that. The second soil made by ADA is the Amazonia Light. That was made for beginners. That leaches a little less nutrients into the water column, so you would have to compensate with the root taps if you wish to keep your scape for a longer time. The powder type soils, however, were invented to be used on the top of the regular soil. Those are a little bit easier to plant in, so I would recommend that to be used on top of the regular Amazonia or in nano tanks. Some people, when they build structures and they want to build a really steep structure in their tanks, feel that they have problems keeping the soil in place, and I've got 2 or 3 solutions for that. One of them is to build terraces. Another way would be to use fine filter mesh in the cracks of the rocks. And I have a third solution that I used in the 60H tank, I guess. That was a big wood piece, and I made a cave, and the back wall of the cave, already in the dark, was a geotextile actually, and the soil was poured behind the geotextile. Many people are asking us, Whether they should pour in the soil first and then use the hardscape, I would say it doesn't really make a difference. Some people just like to use a very thin layer of general plant substrate at the bottom, place the rocks on that, and then start with the base layer fertilizing substrate and use some more soil on top of that. Some people would just like to use like a mat at the bottom of the tank and then put the big rocks on it and then pour everything else as needed afterwards. Another question that many people ask me is that how much should I buy from these substrates and soils? And the answer is really easy. I'm going to use the metric system for reference now. You have to multiply the base dimensions of your tank by the height of the soil first. You just take, for example, a 60p tank. In the case of the general plant substrate, the minimum that you would need is 60 by 30, again, base dimensions, multiplied by 4, divided by 1,000. Really easy. This is the amount of soil that you would need in the planted tank if you would have a uniform 4 centimeter layer. But obviously you want to have some graduation towards the back, so you would really want to have a lot more, even 2, maybe 3 times more than the calculated amount. Does it matter what's the color of the general plant substrate? No, it doesn't really, because ideally you want to have it filled with plants. General plant substrate does not need to be rinsed. So when you pour it out of the bag, you can just pour it out directly into your planted tank. But when you fill up the tank, make sure that you fill it up very, very slowly, because you can wash out all the dust from the soil if you just fill up the tank really quickly. So what we do is we usually just fill up the tank with dripping water. Let's move to the third big topic of the day, the decoration. Sand and pebbles are inert substrates. These should only be used to do a good foreground, to do a path in your tank. I would recommend you to use the lighter colors because it would bring up the color of the fish. It would open up your planted tanks. Please do not use sand that is very dusty. So small grain size sand is not suitable for the planted tank because it compacts more easily. Water will not get into it. So please try to use the coarse kind of sand. I've got the Colorado sand here, La Plata sand here, JBL has really cool sands, and also Danele has very good things. Included the Sulawesi black, so this is the only it's not even sand, but very small grain-sized pebbles. And when you create a path or you create a foreground, ideally you want to use different grain sizes of pebbles. For example, this is the petrified wood, which would go really nice with the Burma. So if you mix the Burma with petrified wood, you can see that the colors are similar. ADA Aqua Gravel, I really like that. This looks very, very natural. It even looks good with the La Plata sand together. See how natural it is? So they are really going together quite nicely. If you put a cereal stone on top, like that, it would be a perfect color combination. But then always take into consideration that these sand and pebbles look differently underwater. And let's move to the orange color, and I put this at the bottom of the picture. I even cut it here because I don't want you guys to use these sick colors like green, red. Another thing that you should avoid when you're having corydoras in your tank is that these cories would not like to be in a sand. They're dwelling through the sand all day long, and they would be hurt by the sharp edges. You're building a tank and you want a no-brainer Balázs solution for everything. You'd have to use, not have to use, but I suggest you to use 3 things. Base layer fertilizing substrate, ADA Power Sand Advance. That has all the supplements in it. Use ADA Amazonia version 2 now on top, and use some decoration sand of a very natural color, and my personal favorites are the Colorado sand, the reddish orangish one, and the La Plata sand. These 3 would make an ideal starting ground. And for the pebbles, I really like the Danele Planta Hunter series, and I also like the gray ones, the Baikal, which goes together quite well with the Seiriu stones. Anyways, you have to combine these and find the solution of your own, but I really like the Planta Hunter things. Those need to be rinsed at least 10 to 15 times. I've been standing there and rinsed them for hours because they're so dirty, but they look the best. I would not suggest that you save the soil after rescaping a tank or just put the soil into another tank, because the soil and the base layer fertilizing substrate will mix and it will create a very problematic environment. Ammonia spikes will come again. Also, the same thing happens when you just tear out the big plant and the base layer fertilizing substrate comes out together with the roots. Another thing that do-it-yourself people really like to do is to do their own soil. Going out to the garden to dig up some dirt, put it in the oven. I've seen videos of that. Like in everything in this hobby, it might work for some people, but we're here to talk to the majority of you guys who just start this hobby and want to do something, a beautiful thing. And another thing, the agricultural substrates. That's another thing. Those are meant to work with terrestrial plants outside. What's the problem with sand? People use it instead of clay-based substrate. Don't do that. That doesn't mean that some plants would not grow in the sand. Actually, in the foreground or in the path, it is desirable to have some Eleocharis, for example, some hair grass that grows in the sand. Bad quality sand can leach silicates in the water, and that can cause algae, and you have no idea where the algae is coming from because you did everything right, but it's your sand that's to be blamed. They can look artificial if you choose the wrong color. They can look too clean if you use the white. This white thing here, please don't use these in your planted tank because I'm not gonna like it. But you might like it, so use it, whatever. This takes us to the last topic of soil, substrates, sands, pebbles. It's the maintenance of them. Our view is that these substrates are taking care of themselves. So you don't really need to vacuum them, but you would need to take care of the sand. It would be advisable to move the sand from time to time in order to avoid it to be green and to have problems like cyanobacteria with it. How often do you change your tanks, or how long can these general plant substrates and soils and everything last? I think that the majority of the tanks would do fine for the first 6 months at least, depending on what kind of soil you use. But after 6 months, you really want to consider adding root tabs and refreshing your soil a little bit. If you do that, your tank is going to be cool for about 2-3 years. And this concludes our tutorial video about the substrate, soil, sand, pebbles, and everything else. I hope that you guys liked it. Please subscribe to the Green Aqua YouTube channel if you didn't do so yet. Hit that like button and that bell button as well if you want to get notified of our future uploads. And we have a membership. You can support the video production by clicking the join button. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye. Cool. Ready?